Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of HDI Local Chapter's live stream show. I'm your host, Tom Wilk, and we once again have a great guest for you tonight. But before we get there, let's talk about our show sponsor. The show is brought to you by Robert Half. They are a talent solutions firm and a leading provider of technology professionals needed to build, deploy, and operate technology in this cloud and digital world. And they do this by placing highly skilled IT professionals either on a contract, a project, or even a full-time permanent basis. And they help keep your businesses going. And you all know that's really important nowadays with having the right amount of employees and the right employees to help your business continue to go and grow. You can browse available candidates, you can search for jobs, and you can access additional valuable information on hiring and career insights at roberthalf.com/technology. All right, let's get on with the show. Our guest today is Jason Wischer. Hey, Jason. Jason.
Hey, Tom.
I've known Jason for several years through HDI, and as a matter of fact, he has been a volunteer with HDI for many years. He's served in multiple roles on the local chapter level, the regional level, and the national leadership level. And he's currently working with HDI Virtual Chapter leadership team to bring the service and support industry community fresh programs to help us connect and learn together from anywhere. And they've been doing this even before COVID. And by the way, if you're interested in what HDI Local Chapters is about or what we do, going to a virtual chapter meeting is the best way to do it because it's free to attend and it's not a presentation. It's a community gathering where we discuss things, we network, and we talk about topics that are hot for the times, right? All right, so Jason, in his professional career, works as an advisory consultant for an elite ServiceNow partner, helping to connect the people with the technology on complex implementation projects. And in Jason's spare time, if you were listening to us, pre-show, he's a father of three, an avid bowler, and check this out, a musician that identifies as a drummer who plays the guitar and currently plays bass for a classic rock band. Jason, obviously you're a talented individual. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, thanks, man. It's great to be here with you.
So maybe we need to have you and Ben Brennan get together and write us a jingle for our show,
Yeah, a little music can go a long way. That'd be awesome.
Well, so, everything we said about you is absolutely true. But what I know, the Jason Wischer I know that I've met through HDI is also a person that really cares about people, whether it's employees, customers, your friends, or just people you meet. You're always just so caring about people. And so tonight's topic kind of hits right down that avenue. We're going to talk about, so let's get into it. Let's talk about, I want you to explain to us like what most organizations do for major incident responses.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit in the pre-show, and I appreciate this opportunity to join you here today. Major incident management, something that I help lead in a professional setting for more than a decade. And we learned as we went, right? We built this process from the beginning. And it started with monitoring and detecting when something was wrong, whether that's, the phones are lighting up or whether your monitoring is going crazy. But obviously, when you're in a crisis situation, you need to identify what's wrong and fix the problem as quickly as possible, put out that proverbial fire. But then there's so many other activities that happen around what I refer to as the service restoration activities. You need to communicate internally, externally, up, down, sideways, left and right. So those are typically the processes that our types of IT organizations deal with. You may be familiar with the service recovery and the communication tasks that you have to do.
Yeah.
But we had an interesting scenario at this company I worked at where it was a power outage. And luckily, we had battery backup and generators. So the systems were fine. There was zero impact from a systems perspective for the customers. But the people that had to work in the office quickly noticed that it was starting to get hot. Well, this power outage lasted more than 2 days.
Wow.
And it was in the middle of summer.
Oh.
And the air conditioners do not run on generator. So it was upwards of 80 degrees, 85 degrees in the place. And we needed to stay and work. So that introduced a new dynamic to managing this incident. We needed to take care of the people on the front lines that were helping serve the customers.
And that sounds like something that's missing from, like I told you, I was sharing a story with you. Like, I've dealt with major incidents, and when you're like the person in charge of, like, reporting upwards, you're trying to think of all these things, and so you talked about like major incident responses, and a lot of us have, I guess the catch term nowadays is like playbooks instead of like process, like involves your processes and procedures, but it also, so where does this fit into like your incident response playbook? Like, who's responsible for this?
Yeah, I mean, if you believe in and any of the things that those people that wrote those books behind you, what they typed is like to say, it's really the leader's job to take care of the people, and then the people take care of the customers. So you're right, though. This isn't a role that is often declared. It's not really one person's responsibility. So I think that this poses a great question for us as an organization to take a look and say, who is in charge of making sure the people have what they need?
So let's talk about that, Jason. Like, what is it when you say taking care of the people? What does that mean? I mean, do I give them like comp time? Do I, give them some extra PTO? What are we talking about? Like, after the fact, I take care of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, in your organization, if you ever had a scenario where you have to have your team stay through their lunch hour or stay late, and oftentimes when people are asked to stay through their lunch hour, somebody buys them lunch. We bring food in, right? We love, here in IT, we love food. That's our kind of motivator.
Yeah, we can be bribed for food, right?
We could be bribed. So whoever that person is that has the wherewithal to think about, I think we should buy these people food. That's probably the right type of person for this role. And it doesn't just stop there, right? It's following up after service is restored and listening to their experience because they went through it on the front lines. And in the example of, the power's out for 2 days and it's hot in the office space, make sure they have bottled water and fans and ice cream even. Make it, just make it a little bit more tolerable, a little bit less painful to do their job in kind of a stressful situation.
So if you're out there listening, what I'm hearing Jason saying is like, the closer you are to the top of the organization, you're the person that has the discretionary calls to be able to buy the ice cream. Like, your frontline supervisors may not have the ability to do that. And I know, Jason, this could even go beyond major incident, because I remember my brother, he works for, well, let's just say he works for one of the biggest logistics package delivery companies in the world. And I know when he worked as an operator in their data center, and he'd have to work like 4 12-hour shifts, and they're 24/7, 365 because they're worldwide, right? And I remember him telling me this is what he remembers the most about his boss. Whenever we had to work on Christmas or Thanksgiving because we had to be there, he would bring in a catered meal for us because we had to work. Now, it wasn't a major incident, but it's kind of similar to what you're talking about. These people are working when we don't want to.
That's exactly the right point here. Is it's about taking care of the people, and that's what better tradition is people that are going above and beyond. They're spending time with your customers instead of their family during those holiday situations. I mean, make it special for them, and they'll remember that. You'll have a stronger response and even more loyalty because that's the way you treat them.
Yeah, and we were talking about like some of the hidden effects you were mentioning to me pre-show about the hidden effects you get from doing this, which are things like that, right? What are the benefits?
Yeah, if you ever notice that teams that just seem to gel together, how do they get to that point? And I've learned that you build trust and camaraderie and friendships, much like the HDI community here, because of the fun activities that you do, but also if you believe in that old adage of you grow through what you go through.
Yeah.
So I think when you go through something difficult as a team, then that's where you get that gelling effect. You build trust, you build camaraderie, and you almost have like this nonverbal communication that happens in a way. You just understand each other.
Yeah, you're like a true team, like you'd say, like a professional sports team. You're a professional, IT team where you feed. Yeah, no, and I think what I think you've said it's really important is. It starts at the top. If you're a great leader and you take care of your people and they know that like you appreciate them and what they do, they have to do it regardless. It's their job, and they most of us truly care about our customer and the company we work for to make sure that our outage, if it is 2 days, it's not because we were just sitting there going, "When are you going to feed me?" It's truly
that's right.
They're still going through it. So it's nice to see the appreciation from the place you work at in that. So let's talk about so I was sharing with you before the show, like, this wasn't a major incident for my company. And if you're listening to this show, like, after the July 2021 time frame, if you look up Print Nightmare, right before the July 4th holiday, Print Nightmare came out, where there were people that would potential hack for print spoolers on and to get onto your print server and into your network. Now, fortunately for us, we did spend some time over the holiday weekend working on this, but we didn't get hit by it. But I can imagine that if this had happened during a weekend or a holiday, because it's advantageous for a hacker to do something like that, right? When they know that the defenses are down, or there's not as many watchdogs on guard. What can you do as an organization when you have to, like, say I have a skeleton crew on, but there's other people that work for me that are better suited, but they're not in the office or they're not on duty. Like, what kind of things can we do for incident response, and how do we take care of them as well?
Yeah, I think some of these same principles apply throughout. It's about making sure that you are conscious of the energy and the effort that's spent for the people that are responding. I remember I spent several years on call as a manager, and I would be that person, the front line. I had to make a decision, especially in the middle of the night, right? My team is trained to contact me, and then I'm making a decision. Do I wake up everyone? How critical is this? How urgent is it? And I think in those major incident responses, we're dealing with scenarios that are critical and urgent. So we need, we need to act quickly, and we need to make sure that we communicate in a very widespread fashion. But I think the point that you hit on here, Tom, is discretionary effort. I like to focus on the measure of engagement. Are your people going to give you their discretionary effort? So in that scenario, everyone understands that is a critical all hands on deck scenario. So I'm going to make that decision to help out the organization and help out that team, again, because we've gelled, because we've built that level of trust.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think I've worked for a place or two that I could easily just ignore the phone because they didn't treat me well. But then there's been places where I'm at that, like, I got to do this. My team needs me. I remember early into my career, I had a boss like that, and I worked for it was before they got bought out by the big the package company. But I worked for that company, and I remember it was my first time in, like, I was doing telecommunications, where I was working on routers and switches and, comm closets and all that. And we had a few of those. And I remember I told my wife years after, and I still tell her, I said, my boss, which I don't even know how to call him a boss, because that's a 4-letter word, right? But he was such a great guy that I said, I want to be that leader someday, where I would fall on the sword for that guy, because I knew he cared, and I knew, he would do things like, I remember one time where I said, hey boss, I need to leave early today. Well, I said, I'd like to leave early today. My wife's going for her first sonogram for her first child. And my boss said, he goes, customers taken care of? I'm like, oh yeah, your work done? Yep. He says, you're not a clock puncher. Get the hell out of here and go do that. That's more important than, it's not critical here right now. So go take care of that. And I remember that. And this was back in 1994, 95. That's how long. And I still remember that. And that guy is still a reference on I haven't applied for a job for years, but he's still a reference for me, because I just love that guy so much as a boss, So I think you're right.
Forever grateful.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's the benefit, that's the reward as leaders, is we get to help people in ways that they can never pay us back. Yeah. And they shouldn't have to, but you make such a big impact.
Yeah. That was the same guy that actually would buy the cater my brother when he worked for that company, that they would cater he would actually take it out of his own money. He was like, I don't care about expensing this. I'm going to buy a catered meal. He was the director at the time. And so, yeah, it's exactly right. So we're down to a couple minutes left, Jason. You knew this would go quick, but
it does.
Let's talk about, is there any advice or steps or recommendations you want to, give the audience before we call it a show on this your take on incident response?
Yeah, probably the number one lesson learned here is that things do go quickly in fighting a major incident, just like this show. So if you miss it here and there, that's okay. Just spend the time afterwards when the dust settles. do a retro and identify what went well and what can go better next time. And if you missed people, if you hear your people and say, hey, it was during my lunch hour, I really would have appreciated lunch. Make sure that you're open to that kind of feedback. Just kind of get the benefit of hindsight and constantly learn as you go forward.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, what my dad called that in the service after action report. Yeah, you definitely want to.
Yes.
And you always can improve, even if you do these great people things like the employee experience thing. There's always ways you can improve on that. So I agree with you.
Amen.
Well, we are at the end of the show. I'd like to thank you once again for being a guest on the show, and I can't wait to see you in person in November. I can't wait until November. I should go on to Leadership Summit, and then I'll see you a little earlier. And I'd like to remind everybody we do this every week on Wednesday evenings, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you follow us on Twitch and YouTube. Follow it, #HDI Local, and make sure to like us and subscribe so we can get this message out to more and more people. And again, thank you, and everybody have a great evening.